As I've said before, information is important because the information that we have affects how we process our experience. You might say even how we do ourselves. We know there's a lot of bad information out there and in there. So what I would call good information, or what the Buddhists might call right information, is information that supports and contributes to our experience of harmony and our movement towards harmony. And bad information is information that reinforces disharmony. So when we're talking about the heart, when we're talking, in fact, about what we are, when we're talking about Tonglen, we're talking about harmony. The expression of harmony. So as I give various images today, I hope not too many of them will be too abstract, but you can bring it back to experiencing your own self as what you are, and how that applies to what you are right now as a harmonious field, as a harmonic field that is natural to yourself. We sometimes speak about having a heart. And I think that the greater truth is that we are a heart. We sometimes speak of the heart of God, or even the heart of the universe. And the truth is, God is a heart. The universe is a heart. And we're expressions of that. So I want to look at this in several different ways. Some of it may sound more poetic, some of it will be scientific or quasi-scientific. That usual mix. Because it's all just meant to convey on different levels images that are good information for what we're trying to express and be and embody, let's say. So just to be just a little abstract, just in the beginning, just for a moment, we can say, you know, there's a sense of what there is, and if you look to any spiritual tradition, or even in philosophical traditions, and really in science too, there's this sense, there's this acknowledgement that what we experience as a finite world emerged from something that can't be expressed as a finite world, right? Sometimes it's said the infinite gave birth to the finite. That which is beyond form, that's beyond all the things that we can talk about, somehow manifested as this, all this stuff, right? Say the infinite gave birth to the finite, the one gave birth to many, right? God gave birth to the world, manifested the world. When we talk about the infinite, when we talk about emptiness, when we talk about anything other than the world as we experience it and as our mind experiences it, it's a world, or it's a reality we can understand, not subject to all of the differentiation, all the opposites, and all the contradictions that we experience, because it's prior to that. It doesn't have all the elements that make up perhaps contradiction and differentiation. That which is beyond difference, you might say, gives birth to that which has differences. So that means that which is beyond and before and prior to difference, in the infinite, there's no difference between yes and no. There's no difference between is and isn't. There's no difference between good and bad. But once you manifest a world with all these elements, of course, all this is going to evolve. We're going to experience, our consciousness is going to experience a world of differentiation and different values and different opposites. So sometimes philosophically, that world of the infinite It's called the coincidentia oppositorum, the coincidence of all opposites. They all come together. Similarly, even in quantum physics, we talk about potentialities or probabilities. I say we. If I may presume to say we can all talk about it. We're all free to talk about it. That there's quantum potential, that the world that we see comes out of a world of potential, that at some point becomes a world of actuality. Right? Prior to that, there are what we would call superimposed potentials. Anything, it could manifest as any number of ways, but at some point it manifests as something. So when this world of superimposed opposites, or the potential for anything, or where there's no difference, manifests as a world of difference, that potential for opposites, that potential for yes and no, that's not really there, now manifests as opposite, as this and that's the dynamic power of this world, this play of opposites. That's most clearly pictured, perhaps, in Taoist philosophy, where they talk about the primordial oneness, the primordial chaos, unformed realm, giving birth to yin and yang, like this play of opposites, which in turn, their dynamic nature creates everything else. So I'm only saying all of that as an introduction to the fact that what we experience is a dynamic, a polar play of energy that is our dynamic potential. Everything has a dynamic potential because it comes out of a potential. But now it's dynamic. Now it's part of a play in the world. Well, we are that. Our bodies are that. All living things are that. It's expressed as, and we'll talk to one extent or another in everything, but we'll talk about living things, and let's talk about us as humans. We've I've spoken before, and so I just want to go into this again in a little more detail. That we are birthed as, and we exist as, a polar energy field. And we've talked about this field, it's called the torus, that's around all dynamic fields, this electromagnetic field, which is characterized by this polar relationship of the north and south. We can call it the north and south pole. There's this dynamic tension, dynamic field of opposites that in turn is generating this whole field of energy. Right? And that's a model really for all dynamic and living things. The heart has this field, the body has this field, the earth has this field, right? It's the field that we experience in the familiar image of a pole magnet, where there's like those butterfly wings that circle between the poles. That's this dynamic, polar energy generating this field. And the characteristics of that field, on one hand, is that that field has its own inner integrity or harmony. It's like, and it also has a relationship, has a potential for a reciprocal relationship with other such fields. So that is really the essential model of the heart and the heart field. We can say what the heart is a self-regulating energy field with its own integrity and its capacity for reciprocity with other energy fields. So there's a natural image of harmony in that. And by nature, the heart exists to maintain and express that harmony. We've talked in the past, perhaps, about the fact, and Chinese medicine also suggests this, and modern research suggests this, that the heart is sending out information on the energy field. All energy waves carry information. And it's sending out information through the whole body that's helping the whole body to function as a harmony. It's also sending information out beyond itself to help create harmony between energy fields. Well, and we've also said that, when we're conceived as human beings, or as any animal is conceived, we're conceived as the dynamic electromagnetic field of a heart cell, a beating heart cell, which heart tissue develops. And then eventually other things come online to serve the energy field of the heart, the nervous system, the sense organs, the limbs, musculoskeletal system, to begin to feed the information to maintain this dynamic energy field of the heart, which is in relationship to other hearts. We call that beings or people in relationship to other people. Take a moment before I go further, if you can, we'll come back to this. We want to take some time with this. To sense that for yourself, to sense for a moment that at your core, running from your, let's say, your crown point to the perineum, the bottom pole of the torso, if you can feel inwardly and sense just a dynamic core of energy that's in this dynamic polar relationship. And at the heart of that dynamic field, I wish I could show more of me in the screen. The heart of this dynamic field is the heart generating this energy field and inspiring this polar dynamic. And from that is generating waves of energy field that's very wide, really. And if we can separate for a moment from our other mental images of ourselves and our reactions to ourselves in the world, and just feel inwardly a sense of a central core, a central heart generating harmonious energy, and an energy field surrounding us. We'll come back to that. In fact, I've managed to find a couple of good illustrations of that, which I also will share with you. I'll give you a sense of that. This gives you a sense. This image is a representation of this torus energy field that I'm talking about. And you see it's being generated at the central area, but it has this dynamic of north and south. And you see this energy field is not only wide and radiant, but also, you might say, has its own spiraling nature, its own internal movement that is continually fluid, creative, and always readjusting and rebalancing and finding harmonies and expressing itself. And yet energy is also open. It's open, north and south, for energy to come in, energy to leave, and the whole field itself creates a harmonic field. In one more image, we'll show this superimposed over a human being. It's a little stylized because our field is not like such a perfect balloon like that. It's very dynamic and moving. But this shows what I like about this picture is it shows that, we have such a narrow image of ourselves walking through the world, but we are really something very, very open, very dynamic, very radiant, moving through us and extending from us. And you see again, the heart is the kind of the central generator of all of that. So that's just a little bit of a model. What happens as we experience, now we have this nervous system that's processing information that we're taking from the outside, and we're experiencing a world that does have opposites. It gives us experiences that are painful or pleasant, experiences that feel safe or threatening, right? That we judge good or bad, etc. Things we want to move towards, things we want to move away from. And all that information is being sent, is entering into and becoming part of this field. which is very fluid and responsive to information. So if there's information that is information of a negative nature, a negative emotional nature, or a negative interpretation of reality, that's bad, that's dangerous, that's good, that's bad, that's threatening, I want it, I don't want it. That's all going to play in and begin to shape our energy fields, again, from birth. The other thing that supports that harmonic field of the heart is its entrainment with and relationship to harmony with the harmonic field of the mother, right? And of the important people around us as we grow up. So if there are disharmonies there, which inevitably there will be, we're also going to learn that our field, which is very creative, is going to learn to adjust and adapt to all of that. So consequently, typically in life, that field, that ideal harmonic field, is actually much more managed internally. There are restrictions. The psyche creates restrictions on that field such that that openness is going to pull in, and what we've called before the flinch mechanism. Now, I'm not quite so much an open reciprocity with others. It's managed much more. There's a pullback. I may not even be an open reciprocity with myself, right? Parts of me tend to be cut off from other parts of me. Parts of me I'm not in touch with, parts of me I allow or don't allow. That's going to be also reflected in how I live in my body, how I live in my heart, how I live in my psyche. So to that extent, as we're processing that information, the mind is sending that information to the heart field, we've compromised the harmony of the heart field in the interest of the mind's idea of protecting itself somehow. We come up with this compromise. So we're all living with this compromise in our heart field. That means that we're living at a very, small, partial capacity of our capacity to be in harmony with ourselves and our capacity to be in harmony with others, which is the innate nature of this field that we are. And so much of the teaching, both in terms of therapeutic teaching or our emotional work, and then beyond that, our spiritual understanding and our spiritual teaching, and certainly the teachings of Tonglen, we can understand that as all teachings that are helping us to navigate and to begin to unwind those areas of contraction that separate us from ourselves, our hearts, and from others, that create a world that's that much more in harmony and in conflict and sharing bad information, which we all know about. How do we begin to, and seems to be, as we said before, at the victim end of, or at the mercy of the evidence, right? I can only be so open, I can only be so loving because this is how the world is. So all the spiritual information, you might say, is information that's coming from the heart. It's coming from the big heart, saying, all right, let me help you come back out into the fullness of this field that you are. Let me help you navigate that journey back to your full potential, which is our evolutionary potential in terms of our own biological evolutionary capacity. And it is our innate spiritual potential. So, all the practices that we have when we begin to de-stress, when we begin to relax, to come into the breath, when we talk about presence, anything that contributes to the sense of simply being present, being open and present and available. Right? These are all states of being when we're simply present, right? That kind of expresses our heart and our heart field being able to come back into harmony with what is, right? Simply being here. It's not, in that moment, it's not processing all of that conflictual information. that tells it it's something small and needs to figure out how to survive and therefore needs to shut that out or get that or this or that, that falls away. Those representations fall away. And we begin to experience just being present with what is. And we begin at that point to have a sense of harmony, okayness, that's expressed by being able to rest more at our own heart, our own center, and at the same time being more open, present, and in harmony with what is around us. We've all experienced that when we come into that, to whatever extent, a place of greater presence. We could define presence, in fact, as that process by which there's a resonance between the heart and the brain, really the heart and the prefrontal cortex, allowing those two now to be in harmony rather than the brain sending messages that create disharmony. And of course, when we're in disharmony and when the heart is in disharmony, that sends a message back to the mind reinforcing, oh yeah, you see, this is all out of whack. So that reinforces. So here we're beginning to learn how to consciously choose our way back into presence, back into harmony. Sometimes by having to kind of counterintuitively, right, suspend or go past what the information of the mind has been feeding us. Because now we're beginning to access a higher information that's telling us it's okay, you can do this. This is in your higher interest. So again, before we go further, let's take another moment to use this as a meditation, to use this image as a meditation, which can be very helpful. But just take a few relaxing breaths. So I should mention about the breath too, right? All this emphasis on the breath. The breath is a natural, physiological expression of this basic relationship of reciprocity. It's saying, I'm willing to allow in and take in what's on the outside. It's a natural process. It's a natural process to release and give back. It's a natural process for what I take in to be able to permeate my own body. The oxygen permeates the cells and I give back. So when we're breathing, even though that's a physiological process, it has its own chemistry, etc., it's also sending a message and allowing, it's in harmony with the whole heart field, the whole being being in harmony, being simply its natural self of receiving, giving and receiving, finding its own natural rhythm. Even though, again, the mind can create stresses that affect the breathing, but when we come back to our full breathing, it relaxes the stresses of the mind. Just as we rest at the heart, all those things are beginning to relax. So to come to the heart, to allow the natural breath. And we often start there in our meditation. So let yourself do that. And then as you're doing that, allow yourself to have an internal sense of a central core. We could say it's a central core in your body. You can image it as a core, as we talked about, running between the crown of your head and the perineum. But you can also just have a more intuitive sense of that core of your being. That core of your being that is also like the heart of you. It's the extended heart. Like the heart of that heart is the heart. When we begin to image and rest at that core or rest at the heart, we're already supporting and allowing, right, and reinforcing and encouraging that energy field, that harmonic field to begin to rest in itself and experience itself and feel its own integrity, right? This is all evoking things we've said before. We said the heart's integrity surrenders its search, picking and choosing its way through good and bad and survival. Now it's just feeling its own integrity. The more we're able to rest and feel the heart's integrity, the more everything that we will do in life is an expression of that integrity rather than a running after trying to find that somehow, indirectly, symbolically. So keep allowing your attention, and if that image helps, use that image, or otherwise it may just be a feeling sensation that allows you to allow that sense of the core to become real. And then you may also have a sense of the heart, and it may be helpful to rest your palm on the heart, to rest there at your center, at your heart center. At the same time that that heart center is generating and integrating this energy. And then when that core becomes real, when the heart becomes real, begin to image that toroidal field, right? That magnetic field that extends and links those two poles and just moves out from you. Just have a sense of expansiveness or spaciousness or emptiness in this relaxed way that's simply moving out or radiating out from the heart. Notice how any conflictual ideas or information in your mind will kind of shut that down or make it difficult. When you relax back into the image, those other ideas begin to relax and fall away. And we rest as the heart and as the radiant heart field. An experience that that essential field has absolutely nothing to do with what's around us, what's in the room, what's going on, what happened earlier this morning, all the stuff that we're carrying. It's prior to that. It's essential. It's already what we are. We can rest as that. And as we rest as that, all the other stuff, things start to clear. Things start to become open. The image and the sensation and the sensation and otherwise actually the emptiness of mind tend to all happen together. And perhaps that sense of the smile arising in the heart, which is its natural expression. Take some more time to feel that, and you can image it, but don't just image. So it's not just an idea that you're trying to project, but just have the image support coming back to the intuitive sensation, the intuitive knowing. You might say just the direct experiencing of yourself as that. That sitting there where you are, that's what you are and what you're generating. That as you walk through the world, you walk through the world as that. As with any other meditation, might take some continued time and attention and practice to allow this presence to become strong, to stay with this image and to allow other things to let go of other things. It's worth coming back to again and again. Once you begin to establish, if or in the moment right now, if you have some sense of the reality of that, if you can hold yourself as this heart field that has its own harmonic integrity, that is complete in itself, and yet each one of us is a unique expression of that, a unique creative potential. We each have an individuality, but that individuality is the playful creative expression of this fundamental harmonic dynamic energy that has its integrity and its openness. But once you feel like you have some connection to that, then allow yourself to imagine, to image another person. Mm. Someone in your life. Start with someone who doesn't immediately trigger something strong for you. A little more neutral so you can practice. And then just in your mind's eye, see and hold that person as also the same thing. As you image that person, forget personality and outer form and circumstance. See that person as that same dynamic core of being. See that person as the heart also generating its harmonic field. Just as our own, as they say in Sanskrit, mishigas falls away. Can't escape my Yiddish roots. um, Falls away when we rest in this open field of presence. As we picture another, and picturing them with their heart field, their core energy, their open field of presence, all of our projection onto them, all of the personality, all of our sense of who they are or how they behave or what's going on for them or what we like or don't like, that also falls away. And we're just envisioning their essence, their essential being, also as a unique heart field expression that wants also to know and to rest in its own harmony. All beings are that. All beings are made disharmonious by our response to circumstances. And all beings want to come back to the wholeness and to that harmony. You can see how this understanding is so central to any Christian or Buddhist or spiritual understanding or teaching that's ever been offered us. And as we're able to see others in the same light as that same heart field, as you're able to see that, you might also now imagine how this integrity and harmony of your own heart field is in a harmonic relationship. Allow your core to be in harmonic relationship to that other core, that other person. Now we're just working core to core, heart to heart. Any other sense of separateness, differences, issues melt away in the light and the warmth of that harmonic relationship. We access and rest, our harmonic field access and rests in their harmonic field. Now, if that other person is not in harmony, I mean, we've been very consciously working hard to rest in it. Obviously, other people may not be there. They are like us normally, and most of us somewhat out of center with that self harmony, and it expresses in all of our behavior, right? And then we react to each other, and we get out of harmony. So this is what we're trying to begin to counter. So we're resting in our harmonic field. We're aware of them and their essential harmony. We also may be aware of ways in which they are generating out of harmony energy, as people do. But rather than being affected by that energy, we're allowing the harmony fields of our own energy to support the inner harmony of the other person. I can feel that energy field just kind of giving harmonic support to their desire, or maybe their unconscious desire to be in harmony with themselves. I can even feel my core almost like a flying saucer. I can feel my core come and rest at their core and send out and generate harmonic energy. None of this is meant to interfere with, to impose on or override that other person, their uniqueness, their individuality. We're not trying to make the other person into something. We're simply giving harmonic support to that other person becoming the fullness of who they are, right? As they are their unique selves in harmony with themselves. So that we're becoming beings by nature, instinctively able to support the harmony, the coming into harmony of others, not by controlling or managing, but by being with the integrity of our own harmonic or heart field and having that be what's being radiated or generated by us. This would also equate, right, to what we would say in Buddhism as being there for suffering, our own or another's, being there for another's suffering. Our suffering are all the different ways we're out of harmony with that innate nature and are desperately trying to do something in lieu of that, in place of that, which can never really work because that in itself is never going to restore the harmony that we already are. So the higher wisdom, as it comes through the Buddha teaching, the Jesus teaching, etc., all pointing us back to finding and restoring and resting in the integrity of our own harmonic field. And then that very integrity is, by its nature, there for others. Because it's no longer, because that's the nature of an integrity field, is that it's equally in relationship to others. In the absence of that, you see, this is our you might say, our natural, the altruistic nature of our own heart field. In the absence of that, to one extent or another, when we have these self-concerns that come from the mind that are generating less than and feelings about ourselves, separateness feelings about ourselves, then inevitably, to one extent or another, our concerns are going to be what we would call narcissistic, because we're trying to get it together to take care of ourselves, to find ourselves, to fix ourselves. And that motivation is always going to take some kind of precedence over our capacity to simply be there for others. Similarly, the difference between this availability and what we might call codependent concern for others, is that a codependent concern for others is really based on, I need that person or I want that person to be this way because it's part of my being okay, or feeling better about myself, or feeling safe, or whatever. Whereas in this, we're already whole. We already have our integrity. And this is just an expression of that. It naturally expresses as. So that narcissistic element falls away and there's just being for. So I have said before that the essential principle, you might say, essential spiritual principle, the essential principle of being, is what I've referred to as the twin principle, the oneness of the in itself, whole in itself, and there for others. There's no separation between that because the nature of being whole in oneself is to be there for others. There's nothing else to be there for. You're already whole in yourself. To be there for yourself, you are it. If you're not it, then you're going to need to be focused on that. So we come into the wholeness and the integrity of our being, and there's no difference between that and our availability to others. That could also be expressed, say in Buddhism, as wisdom and compassion. Our wisdom allows us to come into the wholeness, the genuine wholeness of our being, and that's inseparable from our compassion, which is our availability to others, and the natural instinctive desire to support our harmonic field is therefore and supports their harmonic field. This exact same principle is spoken of by Jesus when asked what the two essential commandments are. He says, there's just two you really need to pay attention to. And he says, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and all thy soul, and all thy strength. Really? It takes integrity to do that. It takes wholeness of heart and soul and strength. Really, it's an injunction to come into wholeness, to be available to love fully, to come into the wholeness and the integrity of what you are, which is not separate from the Lord. Okay. And he says the second is not different than that, is like unto that. Love your neighbor as yourself. There's no separation between coming into the wholeness, integrity of your being and being there for another as yourself. You see? So this is the teaching and the practice. Everything else is just examples or roads into this. Now, Tonglen is just a very beautiful, we might say, technology or technique for practicing and learning how to strengthen this and express this. And I've said before, Tonglen is a practice, but it's actually an expression of something that's even more essential and more basic, which is simply the availability and the being therefore, which is our innate nature. When we turn to anyone from this place of openness, when my core heart field is seeing the nature of the other core heart field, and whatever's going on, I can sense in harmony or disharmony, and I'm just there for that. Then just being present fully as who I am and fully open to another as who they are, is innately going to be a Tonglen exchange. The nature of my presence is to receive others as they are, including whatever my experience of their suffering is. And the nature of my presence is also going to be there for that, to allow the innate harmony that comes from the heart to be offered back to that person. So when we walk through the world, in that sense, we're walking through the world as Tonglen, as give and take. So experience someone in your life. We'll start with, someone close to you, a loved one. And you can use this image of resting in your core being with their core being. And then just being open to perceiving, to sensing a feeling, to being there for their core being. And as you do that, you're aware of where they're at rest with themselves, where they're in conflict, where they're maybe suffering. And may have expressed that in different ways. And so you're including that in what you're available for. And because you're available for it with that innate harmony, you're making your harmony available to that even as you're present with them. Simply by being present, no longer in any way in a state of reactivity to who they are, but availability to who they are with your whole being, which is a being of harmonic integrity and a supportive love. It's love. So image this person. And then on top of that, in terms of the Tonglen exercise, it's just another way. Allow yourself to breathe in and welcome in to your heart, your inherent harmony. It's another way of talking about the heart that's open to the universe behind it, which is the universe of harmony, because that is what it is by nature. As we breathe in, we're welcoming in and allowing ourselves to fully feel, allow, and welcome the suffering into ourselves, which means we're allowing their disharmonic field to become part of our own harmonic field. And on the exhale, we're sending back that harmony and the blessing of that harmony to their field. Simply, you might say, as a capacity to bless. That is what I call the blessing way. Right? When we're in that state, then our way is a blessing way. We're always blessing this next moment of experience by nature, by being there for it, giving to it. So we can breathe in their pain, and we can send back, again, the harmony in whatever way the mind is imaging it. We may just image it as the harmonic field supporting their harmonic field. We may image it in the sense of this thing that they're needing, that they don't have, that would support them. We send it back to them. They need more peace, they need more love, or they need more confidence, or they need more coffee, or whatever they need. Give it to them if that's going to support them. It's just representing our exchange. It's representing our capacity and our willingness to see them as who they are, to see what they're experiencing, to see what they're needing, to make that a part of ourselves, and energetically, right, to send that back. We're establishing our healing relationship and our healed relationship with that person. I've been coming at it from this point of view, so building out from the sense of what we are already. And you might say in our Tonglen relationship with people already. But if you were starting fresh, or someone starting fresh learning about Tonglen, the specific practice of Tonglen, the specific mechanism or technology of Tonglen is this wonderful starting place for beginning to allow that process to occur. Or to expand, we say, expand my capacity for compassion into a systematic practice. And now we see also how this process of healing disharmonies is an interactive inner and outer practice. As we've said before, and the question has been asked several times, you're practicing trying to be available to someone, you're practicing Tonglen with someone, but you can't do it because there's too much emotional stuff coming up for you, for example, too much interference. Right? That means now that you've gotten in touch with a disharmony, right, in your own field that's getting in the way of your availability as you would like to be to that other person. So we turn that same loving, harmonious attention to our back to our own energy field to allow it to come back into harmony however it's needed. And we may need, therefore, to practice with ourselves in our own image the same way we would practice with another. We see a sense of ourselves, we see a sense of what our disharmony or suffering is. I see that when I start to work with that person, it triggers my resentment or my separation or whatever. So I stay there for my resentment. I stay there for my separation. I stay there for my emotions. I stay there for my challenge or my state of being, which is this tonglen with myself, which is calling on the harmonious nature of my own heart to be present for the part of me that's not feeling that harmony. The same principle, it's the same activity in the universe. It's the same capacity to actualize what we are in the name of in the name of what we are, right? In the name of the greater healing. Just in the time that's left, take some more time to again practice. Come into this essence, harmonic essence of yourself. To hold another in your awareness, or maybe someone specifically in your life who you know is going through a hard time, as we often do in practice in Tonglen. And feel how your availability to this person is not some kind of a manipulation or management of the situation or of them. It's simply the full actualization of the available presence that you are. Now turn in relationship to them, allowing you to receive them and to bless them. And next week we'll also be practicing this again in various ways, in various situations. And if you have any thoughts or questions before we conclude, we can take a moment for that. We'll come back to this next week. Holly.
Paul, I just wanted to tell you I had kind of an amazing experience of this field this week that has just come clear to me as we practiced today. I had a medical procedure on Tuesday, and I was nervous about it, and I had to do it at the hospital. And ultimately, I was in a small, darkened room with 3 other people, the doctor, a technician, and a resident. And while I lay there on the gurney, I was aware of this field that we were all generating together in this room, and my own heart as a part of that. I was also bringing in other people who would calm me and help me feel safe and loved and supported. And we just had this amazing conversation with each other about the body and what the body does when it's going through a procedure like this, how it wants to tense up. And I was just noticing that and talking about it, and they were talking with me about it. And, what it means to be in this room together, going through this situation, that there's pain and fear, and that's just how we are built. That's how we're made. So we just had this incredible conversation while I'm being worked on there. And I just felt such a, I felt like I was in harmony with the situation as it was unfolding, which is not my normal way.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it was this field that I was generating myself
Mhm.
and that I was able to meet them in their fields
Mhm.
and to have the situation that was not traumatic to me, which it might be
Mhm.
to be in a medical situation like that. I really felt like I was in harmony with what was happening.
Mhm.
Um, and I didn't realize that actually until this morning as we're talking about this.
Thank you. Yeah, this is so. Well, I just say in conclusion, our nature, but we tend to be turned from it, and our attention is turned on things that keep the disharmony going. When we're blessed to feel that field, or if we can begin to learn to practice and come back to that as our way of being, and this is perhaps an exercise that I would offer you for this week, is to notice, right, and be aware of this energetic field. Take some time also just to rest at the heart. You may notice times when you, as Holly did, when you're actually in that relationship and it feels great, but you may not be tuned into everything that's going on. So, and just become more aware of that harmony of heart fields and of this, even of this image of energies, because it may just help to bring in the attention to that. And be aware, let's say, when you're facing into situations in the world, uh, which normally we respond to from the standpoint of reactivity, because our attention is totally on this mind level reactive field, to take the moment to turn your attention to the core harmony field and to stay. Let's say you're in the presence of another who might or even a loved one, but in that moment they're creating some kind of disturbance in you, right? They're pressing your buttons in some way. In that moment, bring yourself back to that core harmonic field and rest in their presence with whatever's going on in that field from the standpoint of that field, allowing them to be who they are in that moment. They're just going through their own process in their own field, and simply resting present for them in your harmonic field, resting present for yourself in your harmonic field, because then your mental process is not going to make you more or less or out of harmony or reactive or disturbed because of anything they're generating. You're resting in your field, and from that field you're simply able to allow. Again, you're not judging, criticizing, changing, but you're allowing. You realize, oh, I have that capacity to allow things to be what they are when I am able to rest in what I am. Then what I am is available and of service and doesn't have to react to everything or judge everything. Then what I am is by nature in the service of other people coming into their harmony. Right? Then that's what I am in this world. A harmonious field in the service of others coming into their harmony. Not by managing it, but by resting in my own integrity, being there for others. Find some level on which you can apply that and practice that in specific situations. Okay. And most important, discover that to one extent or another, you are capable of it. Right? And then we may share some more about that next week, and maybe tomorrow. All right. We'll go from there. All right. Thank you all very much for holding this heart field together.